What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here. We're going over our 2025 running back tier rankings for the fantasy football season. Now, let's not waste any time. Get right into it here. With the S tier, we have 3 running backs, and you just can't miss with any of them. If you want to reorder it any way you want, be my guest. Jahmyr Gibbs number 1, Saquon Barkley number 1. Doesn't matter to me. I personally like Bijan the most. I like the pass catching upside. I like the volume we're going to get on the ground. I like what I saw from Michael Penix with him under center as far as how Bijan performed in the last 3 games last season. With Penix, he averaged over 25 fantasy points per game on the season in general, just under 20 at 19.9. So we saw a nice little uptick there. Smaller samples, of course, and playing the Carolina Panthers will certainly help things as bad as their defense was last season. But I think we're pretty much on the up and up with Bijan Robinson, even though we were kind of already on the up and up. I think we're only going to get better, which is hard to say with how good he is, but the talent and opportunity is certainly there. And opportunity is the number one most important thing for the running back position. You can be as talented as you want, but if you are splitting carries, you're not getting all the work, you're not getting the valuable touches, it just doesn't matter. And that's why you see when a very talented running back goes down, then a backup comes in who's obviously not nearly as good. If they're getting 20 plus touches, it doesn't matter. They're going to score fantasy points, and that's something we're going to get from all 3 running backs here. Looking at last season, Saquon Barkley ranked number 1, 31.2 opportunities per game, which is insane. Second best was Derrick Henry at 27. Jahmyr Gibbs came in at 22.6, a little bit lower, but of course, obviously splitting carries, but he's very efficient with his touches. That still was the 5th most, and then Bijan came at the 4th most, sitting at 23.7. Now, the reason I have Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson higher than Saquon Barkley, even though Saquon Barkley was just so incredible last season, number 1 in fantasy points per game, 28.5 rushes per game, which was the most, 125 rushing yards per game, which was number 1. Number 2 was Derrick Henry at 113. And obviously just an incredible season. Obviously Jalen Hurts with the tush push can steal some touchdowns from him, which absolutely sucks. He could have an even better year, which is hard to say with how good he was. And Jahmyr Gibbs, he also kind of loses some value with David Montgomery always stealing some rushing touchdowns, but there's plenty enough to go around for both those running backs. We've seen it many times. But what I like about Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson is they're going to be more involved in the passing game. It boosts the floor. So if we are in PPR, I mean, you can make the case for Saquon, number 1 standard, of course. But in PPR, I'm taking Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Last year in the passing game, 4.2 targets per game for Bijan Robinson, 3.7 for Jahmyr Gibbs, both ranked in the top 10 for running backs last season. Both were in the top 10 as far as receptions per game at 3.6 for Bijan, 3.1 for Jahmyr Gibbs. Receiving yards, Bijan just missed the top 10. He's sitting at 11th, but one off, both being in the top 10 once again. And like I said, the opportunities are there. 10 elite games for Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 elite for Saquon Barkley, although he did miss a game, and then 9 elite games for Bijan Robinson. All 3 had 0 bad games last year. They did not lose you any weeks, and all 3 of them were above 50% of the time having elite fantasy games. So slam dunk picks here. You can't miss. Pick your favorite one. For me, it's going to be Bijan. Moving on to the A tier, we're going to start off with CMC. I have actually seen some people have him as the number 1 overall fantasy running back in PPR, which I do get, but I think we kind of have to bake in the potential injury history that we do have with CMC. But yeah, when he's healthy, he can easily be the number 1 running back. This is a great system to be in, and he has shown that he can do it before. He can have these monstrous elite seasons, especially with his involvement in the passing game, which is probably going to be pretty heavy this season. They lost Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk still banged up. Juwan Jennings' situation with his contract is still ongoing. Ricky Purcell picked up a hamstring injury for training camp. So, I mean, there's not much to have back there. So it's going to be some very heavy CMC usage when healthy. And yeah, great system. Kyle Shanahan, I mean, you could easily put him in the S tier when healthy for sure, but we know that's not always the case with him. Devon Chan was a tale of 2 stories last year because we had elite games with Tua, and then when Tua was out, because that's something that does happen quite often with Tua with the concussions, he was horrible. Over 22 fantasy points per game with Tua in, under 10 last season without Tua. Fortunately, it wasn't the whole season. Devon Chan still had a pretty good fantasy season overall. He was 5th in fantasy points, 6th in fantasy points per game. Just not really a high volume back, 12.1 rushing attempts per game, but he does make up for it with his involvement in the passing game, which we absolutely love. 5.1 targets per game, which was 2nd. 4.6 receptions per game, which was 2nd. 3rd in receiving yards at 34.8 per game. And also 2nd in receiving touchdowns as well at 0.35. So elite through the air. And when Tua is healthy, he is a top 5 potential fantasy running back. So I'll be in on him this season. It's just when you're in PPR scoring, he can win you weeks every single time. 8 elite games last year, which was 47% of the time, which is right on par with guys like Derrick Henry, and just a little bit below the S tier, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley, which is why he ends up in the A tier. And of course, Ashton Jeanty is going to be a bit of an unknown, incredible in college. Now, NFL defenses are going to be much softer than what he had in college, and obviously not on the best team in the world in Las Vegas, but he can do it all. and he definitely deserves to be a top 10 fantasy back. He'll be involved everywhere. So, I mean, the Raiders paid a premium for him, and they're going to use him. I expect a lot of touches, a lot of involvement, whether it be on the ground or through the air. I think you definitely have to be on him. And first-round rookie running backs, I mean, they got fresh legs. They're ready to go. And when you pay a premium for them, you're going to use them. And then we have Derrick Henry. And honestly, I wanted to put him in the B tier, but I just feel like it's wrong to do so. And I'll be honest, I'm never really someone that's super high on Derrick Henry just because he does not catch the football. And at some point, he's going to have to fall off. I mean, with the volume that he gets, but he's just a bit of a unicorn. I mean, he's huge, and he just keeps on chugging along. And if he's going to be on the Baltimore Ravens offense, that system, they're going to put up fantasy points. Lamar Jackson typically does not steal too many rushing touchdowns, only 4 last season. They let Derrick Henry do the dirty work down there, and then once we get to the second half of the season, it starts getting cold. It gets a lot harder to tackle Derrick Henry, and he can have these huge, monstrous games. 4th in fantasy points per game last season. That's still in PPR, and he doesn't really catch the football much. And if you're looking at his receiving numbers last season, 1.3 targets per game. That's 64th on my list for running backs. 57th in receptions per game. 44th in receiving yards. And then receiving touchdowns can be a bit of a messy stat. I think he had a couple last season. Was 15th in receiving touchdowns per game. But second in opportunities, which is what we want. He's going to get the rock 20 plus times on the ground pretty much every single week. 113 rushing yards per game, which is second only behind Saquon Barkley, 25th, or second in rushing attempts at 25.7. I mean, it's what he does. He gets a lot of volume on the ground. He's going to score touchdowns, especially in the second half of the game when the Ravens are wearing them out. I'll just give the rock to Derrick Henry, and he'll do that. It's never fun picking him in PPR because he just doesn't really catch the football, but as long as the touchdowns keep coming and he's on a good offense, which he certainly is, I can't expect too much. I do think he'll regress a little bit, but still a top 10 fantasy back for me. And moving on to our B tier, every single one of these guys has A tier upside on a week-to-week basis. This is your low-end RB1s. And I love Chase Brown and Bucky Irving this season. I want to put him in the A tier, but I just can't completely pollute it with 10 backs. So we have to start breaking it off one. And Chase Brown, Bucky Irving are very, very, very close. But they cut Zach Moss over in Cincy. It's going to be the Chase Brown show once again. And he's the perfect PPR back. The way this team is going to run the ball is by doing checkdowns through the air with Chase Brown. So I'll take the extra reception point that I get. He was top 10 in targets last year for running backs, top 10 in receptions per game. And I think we're only going to get better this season. So love Chase Brown, love Bucky Irving. We're still going to have to deal with Rachaad White. He is on the team, unfortunately. And he might have been a little bit more productive than I think we remember him being last year. And by productive, maybe I should say getting more opportunities than we remember. But Bucky Irving's clearly the top back of that offense. They're going to put up a lot of points. I kind of view Tampa pretty similar to the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a team that can put up a lot of points. Their defense isn't that great, so they got to keep pushing it. And Bucky Irving should just benefit like we saw last year. Super talented back. And it's kind of hard to look at the points per game metrics and really all their numbers in general because, Bucky Irving didn't exactly take over until a certain point last year. So the games that he hasn't taken over yet, it's kind of going to kill the averages a bit. And the same can be said for Chase Brown. And then we kind of get to some less exciting backs here, but still highly useful for fantasy. They get plenty of volume and plenty of touchdown scoring opportunities inside the red zone. Last year for Josh Jacobs, he was 6th in fantasy points, 8th in fantasy points per game. Kyren Williams came in at 7th in fantasy points and 9th in fantasy points per game. Both were in the top 10 in rush attempts. Both were in the top 10 in rushing yards. Both were in the top 5 in rushing touchdowns per game. Honestly, just very, very similar backs. Josh Jacobs had a little bit more usage in the passing game. So if you want to give him the slight edge because of that, you can. But only one bad game combined between them. 8 elite games for Josh Jacobs, 6 elite games for Kyren Williams. Kyren also had 8 good games compared to 2 for Josh Jacobs. So we actually saw Kyren Williams a little bit higher more often than not because Josh Jacobs had 6 average games compared to Kyren Williams sitting at 2. But either way, both are basically the same thing. Jacobs has a little bit more receiving upside, but I do like the Rams offense slightly more for Kyren Williams, and I think we're going to see pretty much more of the same here. It would not be a surprise at all if we just copy and pasted these stats from last year into this season, and it's going to be a very similar output, I think. Of course, Kyren does have to deal with Blake Corum, and I think we all thought Blake Corum was going to be more involved than he was last season. But as long as Kyren keeps going, I really don't see McVay turning away from him. Moving on to our C tier, at this point, they're almost getting to be at the point where it's all the same. Like, yeah, they're going to get 15, 20 touches. It's going to be okay. They don't really have elite skills at this point of their careers, or you just can't trust them yet because they're a rookie, or the situation on their team just isn't that great to present as many scoring opportunities. Like for the Indianapolis Colts quarterback situation, we got Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. The Saints were dealing with probably even a worse situation over there, potentially Spencer Rattler. Connor, he's just old at this point, but we know what we're getting with him. Breece Hall, you have Justin Fields under center, which can definitely take away some potential upside with his rushing ability. And James Cook, Josh Allen stealing all the touchdowns. Chuba Hubbard has other guys behind him that are going to have to get some work, but Chuba still should be the lead guy. No Martin Hampton, a rookie, so it's the great vast of unknown here. Najee Harris did get banged up. Could definitely vault him up a little bit, but lots of question marks and just not really even question marks. It's just like, what's the upside on these guys? Jonathan Taylor, I would prefer a nice drop back quarterback with him, like Joe Flacco. I like that. Just hand the ball off. If it's Anthony Richardson, he can obviously steal goal line touchdowns. He'll steal rushing attempts. That's the only annoying thing. We know Jonathan Taylor's a super talented running back. Last season, 7th in fantasy points per game, 3rd in rush attempts per game, 3rd in rushing yards, over 100 rush yards per game last season, which is great. We have seen some of his advanced metrics definitely decline the past couple of seasons. And like I said, the offensive situation just leads me not to be as inclined as I have been in recent years. Alvin Kamara, like, we know the upside with him is in the passing game, but the quarterback situation is just going to be so bad, and this team is going to be not good at all. I mean, the expectations for the Saints in general should be very low this season. Last year in the passing game, though, it was just incredible. He was first in targets at 6.4, first in receptions at 4.9, first in receiving yards, and also was 6th in opportunities per game last season with 21.8. And while the opportunities are still going to be there, it's just this is a declining offense and not one that I'm too excited about. And also Alvin Kamara, each and every single year, he is getting older, and at some point running backs will fall off. James Conner, probably the most boring guy you can ever draft, but you know what you're getting. It's pretty safe. You're getting a top 20 running back. He averaged 15.7 fantasy points per game last year. That put him at 16th. He was 11th in rushing attempts per game, 11th in rushing yards, 16th in rushing touchdowns per game, 17th in targets. Like, he'll get a few. It's not like he's an elite pass catching back, but he's involved. 2.9 receptions, just under 30 receiving yards, which did have him in the top 10 last season, and just under 20 opportunities per game at 19. That put him at 11th, which is fine. So, like, it's not a sexy pick. You're not like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I just drafted James Conner. It's definitely not that, but it's enough to get the job done, especially if it's your RB2. Next up, Breece Hall. I gotta be honest, I don't really like Breece Hall. And I mean, the efficiency has gone down, and I don't like losing Aaron Rodgers. I know Aaron Rodgers was not a great quarterback, especially at this point of his career. But what kept Breece Hall relevant was that he was involved in the passing game. And I don't really think that's going to be the case with Justin Fields. He's not going to be as likely to check down because Aaron Rodgers, when he's in trouble, he's looking to check down. Justin Fields is looking to try to scramble and get some yards. Last season, Breece Hall, for looking at his rushing, just in general, 25th in rushing attempts per game at 12.4, 25th in rushing yards per game, 32nd in rushing touchdowns per game. But what kept him alive was these passing numbers. He was 3rd in targets per game, 5th in receptions per game, 5th in receiving yards per game, and also top 10 in receiving touchdowns as well. Still top 20 in opportunities per game at 17.2, but I do have concerns with Justin Fields under center. I think Justin Fields is going to be fine for fantasy himself, but it's probably going to hurt Breece Hall directly. And then you also have Braylon Allen as well, who can still goal line touchdowns. So for me personally, I'm not in on Breece Hall. And James Cook, I mean, he's the RB1 on a really good offense. The only issue is, besides the touchdowns last year, which I know is very important, they account for a lot of fantasy points, I just don't think he's going to be able to keep up the pace of 1 touchdown per game. I mean, of course, he's in a great offense, and Josh Allen did steal a lot of touchdowns from him, but I don't really see that changing, because why not just use Josh Allen when you get inside the 3 to 1 yard line situation. But outside of the touchdowns for James Cook, he wasn't really spectacular at anything else. We're talking borderline top 20 numbers as far as rushing attempts per game, rushing yards per game. Not that used in the passing game because Josh Allen could just run the ball. He was also outside the top 20 in total opportunities per game. So I'm assuming the touchdowns are going to come down. I mean, they might not because of how prolific this offense is, and maybe Josh Allen seeds some goal line touchdowns, but for me, I just think James Cook is not going to be able to realistically do what he did last year. He was a top 10 fantasy running back, 8th last season, 11th in fantasy points per game, but I think he comfortably settles right around that 15 point per game mark, and I don't think we'd be too upset about it, but he's not anything to be pumped up for this year. And Chuba Hubbard, I do like. I picked him up very cheap last season, and obviously the second half of the year, that was incredible for me. Chuba Hubbard was awesome. Bryce Young got better. The Panthers' offense looked really good at the end of the season. It's kind of weird because usually running back on a team where the defense is horrible and they got to play catch-up doesn't usually pay off too often. And Chuba Hubbard's not like a big-time receiving back by any means. Like, he is using the passing game. He's just not like Alvin Kamara, but they were using him. And, I mean, I have no issues with Chuba this year. I don't think he's going to do exactly what he did last season where he was 13 in points per game, but shouldn't be too far off. I mean, 16.3, I think that is I think he'll be able to replicate something very close to that. He was heavily used in this offense. He was 7th in opportunities per game at 21.7. In the passing game, I mean, he's just outside the top 10, right around in that top 15 as far as targets and receptions per game. So Chuba is fine. And then we have Hampton here. Najee Harris not going to be available at the beginning of training camp. That I think is pretty huge for Hampton. He's a first-round pick, and we know the Chargers will run the ball a lot, and he's got a good skill set. I like him, and when you're a first-round running back, I mean, teams don't really want you to sit. Time to use running backs is when they're young, their legs are fresh, and I think he's a heck of a lot better than Najee Harris. I personally hate watching Najee Harris play football. You never get the breakaway runs, and it's just a bunch of plodding behind the line, and it's an ugly stat line. You need the touchdown to pay off. I think Hampton has a lot more upside, so obviously, with being a rookie, there's a lot of unknown here, but he definitely has the upside of sneaking up maybe even to that B tier, depending on how much he's going to be used. Moving on to the D tier, I mean, there's guys with upside, but it's kind of hard to count on them on a week-to-week basis, or the rookies where we're not really sure what to expect yet. Kenneth Walker, he could be higher because he's pretty good when healthy. The issue is he's not always healthy, and the Seattle offense doesn't really excite me too much. Lost DK Metcalf, bad offensive line, brought in Sam Darnold, which it's okay. I mean, it's not too much different than Geno Smith. They are going to have a new run scheme this season with the outside zone, which is probably good for Kenneth Walker, but like I said, just not a really appealing situation for me personally. David Montgomery, he's like the most mediocre running back as far as getting 10 to 15 carries and anywhere from 40 to 60 yards every week. Last season, he averaged basically 12 and 55, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar. But what keeps David Montgomery, I think, viable is he's always going to have that touchdown upside. For whatever reason, Dan Campbell loves him, and he uses him, and he keeps the defense fresh for Jahmyr Gibbs. He's their grinder, but they do reward him with touchdowns at the end of the day. Almost a touchdown per game last season. It was actually 6 in touchdowns per game overall, and still saw 15.3 opportunities per game. And getting 15 opportunities in the Detroit Lions offense that can put up a ton of points and are going to have scoring opportunities does keep you valuable, in my opinion. Not too much in the passing game. We're talking like just under 3 targets per game, which it's enough. You know, as long as he gets the touchdown, you're pretty happy with the output, but definitely not someone I would trust as my RB1. Joe Mixon has Nick Chubb in town. Now, Nick Chubb is obviously very washed these days. Did not look good in his final stint in Cleveland. Of course, you know, more time off, more rehab throughout this season, more time working out. Maybe he gets a little bit better, which would not be good for Joe Mixon. But, I mean, Mixon should still be the RB1 in this offense. And while he wasn't exciting last year, he was still pretty good for fantasy. 10th in opportunities per game last year, top 10 in rushing attempts, top 10 in fantasy points per game at 17.1, I should say. So he's fine. But, you know, the addition of Nick Chubb is definitely going to hurt some things. And I'm not absolutely in love with this Texans offense. Currently, he's just a very boring back that he'll get enough work to be valuable, but the addition of Nick Chubb can and probably will be pretty annoying. DeAndre Swift, he has the chance to probably move up a tier here. We'll have to see how this offense looks with Ben Johnson, but I'm assuming they're going to take a step up. And if that's going to be the case, we should see that reflect with DeAndre Swift here. If the Bears are winning games, it's going to only help out DeAndre Swift, I think. Last year, I mean, it was just a horrible, horrible ending to the season. And obviously the coaching situation with Eberflus just dreadful. So I'm expecting a little bit better out of DeAndre Swift, but still not a guy that you really get too excited about drafting. Personally, for me, I've never really liked DeAndre Swift. He's had the upside here and there because he can be a good pass catching running back for sure, but he's 24th in points per game last season. Not really a big opportunity guy. He was 25th in opportunities. Yeah, he's not a guy that I'd plant my flag on. Aaron Jones, I mean, I tell you, this run of running backs we have talked about so far is just, it's not fun. Nothing fun about David Montgomery, nothing fun about Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift. And same can be said for Aaron Jones. He's getting older. He's losing his explosiveness. His numbers are declining. We have Jordan Mason in town, which I think at some point is really going to start stealing some work. This is still a fun offense, and he has involvement in the passing game, but I'm not really in on Aaron Jones. I mean, he's a serviceable lower end RB2. That's really about it. Same can be said for Tony Pollard, the Titans offense. I know they're bringing in Cam Ward, of course, number 1 overall pick, but I don't really think that's going to make the Titans offense amazing. I don't think it's going to be a major difference for Pollard. He's kind of like Aaron Jones, where he's getting older, not quite as old, only 2 years younger, but Pollard's definitely on the back half of his career at this point. I mean, he had 1 elite game last year, 7 good games, which is fine, but 4 average, 4 bad. It wasn't really doing anything for you. He was basically he was 12th in opportunities per game, but on that offense, it didn't really mean too much because he was still 22nd in fantasy points per game, only 12.6. Then we got 2 rookies to end it here, which I think both will definitely have upside, but with them being rookies, it's hard to be too high on them unless your name's Ashton Genty. But Caleb Johnson, And he's going to replace Najee Harris. Jalen Warren's still going to be in that annoying change of pace role, but I still think Caleb Johnson's the running back that I would want in this offense, and I think he's definitely the better running back, so hopefully that ends up being the case. I think being potentially the RB1, although the problem is it's not a workhorse role anymore, because with Jalen Warren, it's not like back in the day with Rashard Mendenhall, Le'Veon Bell, they just got all the work. Even D'Angelo Williams back in the day when he filled in, you knew you had pretty much the best fantasy running back, James Conner, but that's not the case anymore. But I think Caleb Johnson definitely has a lot of fantasy value. RJ Harvey, another guy I like too. I think it's a really nice fit in Sean Payton's offense. He's quick, he can catch the ball well, and with Bo Nix ascending and this offense keeps being on the rise, I think Harvey definitely has fantasy value for sure. And then the F tier, we're going to do the top 30, then we're logging out here at this point. But Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, the upside is there. I mean, we've seen at times he can be a top 10 fantasy running back. Issue is, obviously, hurt his leg last year, came back and was not really able to steal the job back from Kareem Hunt. It was pretty much a dead even split for most of the time, and that absolutely killed his upside. I still think Kareem Hunt's going to be involved in this offense, and if that's going to be the case, that will hurt Pacheco. But, I mean, he's going to have upside when he gets into the end zone, but when Pacheco is not scoring, it could be 60 yards and you get 6-7 points. He's not like a prolific pass-catching back, and that can get real annoying real quick. Traven Henderson, he's technically going to be the backup in New England, but I definitely think he's a lot better than Ramondre Stevenson. He's also going to have pass catching upside, which is going to be nice. So I think we could definitely see him rise a bit in the ranks as the season progresses. Brian Robinson Jr., no pass catching upside here. That is Austin Eckler's job. And he's another guy where if he is not scoring a touchdown, he is getting you 5-6 points because there's nothing else happening. He's going to get 58 yards. And if he scores, great. You get around 12 points. If not, that's when you get 5-6. And it's just not a fun time. And then Jalen Warren, change of pace back over in Pittsburgh. I would much rather have Caleb Johnson personally, but he's still going to have involvement on this offense. Aaron Rodgers, we saw with Breece Hall, he can check the ball down, and Jalen Warren's going to be that guy for Aaron Rodgers, and he's pretty efficient when he is in. It's just he's not going to get a massive workload, like 20, 30 plus touches. That's never going to be the kind of guy that Jalen Warren is, but he still has fantasy value in this offense, even though it's not an offense I'm overly excited about. But with that being said, that's all I got for today's video. So if you enjoyed it, even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Scott Champ, brand new. If any questions, comments, concerns, or leave your own rankings down below. More than happy to watch them or see them or talk to you about it. But I wish you the best. See y'all next time.